Thank you very much, guys. I put myself in all kinds of crazy situations and sacrificed my body. As you can tell, I sacrificed my face to be here for you guys. I was playing tag with my son a couple weeks ago in New York City at the playground, and was running after him. And I learned two things. One is a 7-year-old can run under things that I can't. And the second is when you run into monkey bars at like a full sprint with your face, they don't move, which was, I was shocked to learn that. So I broke my nose in 3 places and had 27 stitches. I just got my nose rebroken on Friday, so now it'll actually be straight and not like Owen Wilson, and that's why I look like this now. So please bear with me if I suddenly start having some sort of an oxycodone haze today. Today we're going to talk about the quest for global originality. This isn't just about original reality, in my opinion. It's about originality and trying to find an original voice, an original direction, an original look at things. And I think that it's a good conversation to be having here at MIP as we are kind of looking at all these people from all around the world who are bringing great content. And I just want to tell you a little background kind of from my own career that will set up, I think, a look at how we should all be looking at originality. I've made a career out of getting people to not only face the harsh realities of this world, much like this gentleman is facing right now, but actually to get them to watch movies and TV shows about those harsh realities. I've dealt with everything from fast food to terrorism, from education to gay marriage, medical marijuana to immigration. And today, we're going to talk about the future of nonfiction programming. As you can see in the future, they'll all wear spacesuits. That's how you know it's going to be the future. And what I want to do is talk about what that future is going to look like and what you can do to actually stay ahead of the curve, like this kid. There's going to be a lot of different ideas and motivating factors I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to yell at you and get you all excited today like this drill sergeant. And there's going to be some things that we'll discuss along the way, most of them from my own career path, to help us kind of look at the world in this quest for global originality. First off, most people never heard of me until this little movie came along and changed my life forever. But there were other things that happened long before this movie was possible, things that I think are still relevant today. What most people don't know is that I've been working in the industry for 12 years prior to this. Pounding the pavement, working on whatever I could, making whatever I could, schlepping as a PA on films like this, directing anything people would let me. And, William H. Macy has a great quote. He said that, after Fargo came out, that it took him 20 years to become an overnight success. It took me a good dozen, but my point is that any legitimate sustainable breakthrough comes after years of preparation and dedication, and hopefully these things prepare you for what's to come. In 1999, I was sitting in my apartment in the Lower East Side of New York City writing a business plan for my first company. The company was called the Interactive Consortium. It's a terrible name. Where were you guys when I needed you? The whole idea behind the Interactive Consortium was we were going to create programming online. We were going to create short-form content, pilot it, that we would then springboard off to film or television. A very novel idea back in 1999 when we created this. We called the company, because the Interactive Consortium was such a terrible name, we called it the Con for short. Also not a good idea. Just a little advice for people. Let me give you guys, if you're going to raise money from VCs, don't use a name for a company that makes it sound like you're going to run off with the money. And also don't look like this. That was the beard I had when I was raising money for my company. You shouldn't look like the Unabomber when you're trying to raise money. Never look like a terrorist, and wear shirts to meetings. Also a good idea. So you should look the best when you're trying to get cash from people. The year before, I was chasing money for this company. I'd gotten Sony to underwrite a web series called The Instant Show. This was back in 1998, and it was the first live variety show ever on the web. And I'd spent years working on everything I could up till then, every production that I could. But after making this project, after making the Instant Show, I saw, as a lot of people did, a tremendous opportunity in this worldwide interwebs back then. To use this place as a medium to create, to innovate original programming. Our goals as producers, should be to stay ahead of the curve. That's one of the most important things we should try to do. And we should lead versus follow, and that can be difficult at times. And while I was, a bit late to the tech boom, trying to chase a company in 2000, what we were advocating for at that time period was very different from what a lot of other companies were proposing. So in the spring of 2000, I started shopping the idea of this company, the Interactive Consortium, this web-based production company, as had dozens of other companies. Back then, tons of other companies had the same idea I had, and they were raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Companies like Pop, Sudo, Icebox, Den, UGO. These companies raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Me, not so much. Unfortunately, when I started trying to raise money for my company in March of 2000, there was a bubble that burst. There was a major economic readjustment to the market. Everything crashed. And it was not the best time or the best circumstances for a young upstart with fantastic facial hair to be trying to sell investors on this magical world of digital content. But on the heels of the crash, as this was happening and I was going out and meeting people with true desperation driving me, all of my hopes came down to one man, one guy who would still return my phone calls, my Neo, this guy, Marty Garvey. And so Marty, this amazing person, was the one person who would still return my phone calls, who wasn't afraid of this guy showing up and asking for money. And so Marty said, listen, meet me uptown. So I met Marty on the Upper East Side for a beer. And at this point, no investor would call me back. Everybody else had dropped out, and he was saying, Morgan, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about production. I don't know anything about movies or TV. This all sounds so crazy. Interactive content, people watching TV online. He goes, I don't invest in crazy ideas. I invest in people. And he goes, and I may not understand this. He goes, but I believe in you, and I believe you will do something with this. And he reaches in his pocket, and he pulls out his checkbook, and he proceeds to write me a check for $250,000. Amazing. So now the answer that a lot of people will ask, if someone writes you a check in a bar for $250,000, how long should I stay in the bar and drink with that person? And the answer is as long as they want. So we stayed in that bar till 4 in the morning until the guys basically made us leave. And I left, and I was so scared I would lose the check, I folded it up and put it in my sock. So I went home with my sweaty sock check, and the next day realized that, I needed to change things. We were trying to raise millions of dollars. I'd raised $250,000. And so I knew we'd need to kind of change our focus. I need to change what our plan was. We need to actually narrow our focus. We couldn't do everything we'd dream of, and we realized that we'd have to kind of readjust. We'd have to pivot. But we also weren't going to let less money be the reason we couldn't make what we wanted. We wanted to make sure that we could still move forward. Now, it's pretty hard to imagine today, but in April of 2000, there was no such thing as reality television. I know, right? Ready? Amazing. No reality TV in 2000. There was nothing on television like that. All nonfiction shows were relegated to public television. And in the States, the big show, the one thing that had just premiered that everybody was talking about was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And this show everybody was watching. It went from 1 night a week to 2 nights a week to 4 nights a week. It was like all Regis Philbin all the time in the United States. Yes, yes, yes. Is that your final answer? They rode that show into the ground. But it was one of those things where at that moment, and you have to look at the landscape in this business. You have to be inspired by the landscape around you. You have to let either the scarcity or the saturation of something become a shining light for you. And I said game shows. Our first show needs to be a game show. That's where we need to focus our money. And 4 weeks later, we premiered this.
It's I Bet You Will, the show that proves people will do anything for money.
In Boston. I bet you will.
This guy's gonna do it for $200 right now. He's taking it away. He's stealing it away for $200. There we go.
I got some coloring.
What's your name, man?
I'm Russell.
We gotta thin up that mohawk a little bit more. Can we get a paper towel? You're a handsome man, Russell.
Thank you.
I bet you it was all about the undersell.
I'm feeling great. I've been looking for this all my life.
All his life. Hear that?
Now Now we gotta spike this up a little bit. Let's see what we get. See, now the key with Mr. T is, he had the beard as well. So now we're gonna glue all of his hair to his face.
Does that stuff come off?
Look this way, just the hair. There we go. And of course, the big $sign one. Yeah!
Which is like, I'm a pin in the foot, that's an initial show.
Most important thing about that clip, did you see how much hair that guy had on his head? Look at that. Like, I watch that clip and I say, damn, that's a lot of hair. That's what this business will scare the hair right out of your head. That's what happens in the TV business. So, I mean, you look at that today, this silly little show that we made, and it seems incredibly tame by today's standards, but when it premiered in April of 2000, it exploded. We'd hit on something, so mind-blowing. On the very first day, we had 1 million unique visitors to the site. By the end of the first week, we had 5 million. By the second week, CBS called. And, what ultimately ended up happening was we sold this show that blew up online to MTV, and we ended up doing 53 episodes, 53 22-minute episodes, all based on a 5-minute web show, complete proof of concept. And we did this with just a fraction of what these giant companies had raised. They raised hundreds of millions of dollars, we raised $250,000 of dollars, and with that money, we were able to take the first show from the web to television. I mean, it was a huge accomplishment. Incredible. Now, I bring this up because far too often, we say we can't accomplish certain things because we don't have enough cash, because we don't have enough money. And the thing that we talk about consistently within our company is that we can't let money dictate innovation. You can't let money be the reason for why you're not doing things. There are creative solutions to many problems that aren't just throwing money at them. And one of the things that I think is hold on, let's move the slide. There we go. But the question is so why did our show work? Why did this show work when so many others didn't? Why did this silly little game show where we bet people to do things explode when other things weren't even reacting or hitting on the web? And I think there were multiple reasons. One is I think we were in the middle of a massive stock market readjustment. Next slide. There. It goes back to being inspired by our cultural landscape. So first off, there was a stock market readjustment. I started my company in the middle of this stock market adjustment. For I Bet You Will, we were giving regular people, regular Joes, back in 2000, pre-reality television, it was amazing. Regular people just like you and me on their way to work, a chance to actually be on a game show, to get free money, to do something that we all want. And ultimately as a format, what was interesting with this show is we basically took it to the street. We took it out of where you would typically watch television, we took it to the audiences, and that was something that suddenly became more popular in more and more shows. But what these fine contestants actually showed us, I think more than anything, was this was the beginning of something revolutionary, something that would then suddenly take off over the next 15 years, that for a very low cost, we could create high return entertainment. But it also prepared us for something else. Because when this show got canceled, when I Bet You Will got canceled, we had $50,000 in the bank, and everyone in my office asked, well, what are we going to do now? What's next? What should we do with this money? And of course, I said the most logical thing. I said, well, let's make a movie. Because we could. The amazing thing that happened at this time is there was a massive democratization of cinema. There's a massive democratization of production. We basically owned all the equipment. We had our own cameras. We had our own computers. Suddenly, at the same time as the reality boom was this fantastic digital indie film boom where now anybody with a camera and a computer and a good idea could basically make a movie. And it opened a door to all kinds of different filmmakers, including people like myself. And we all know what happened after that.
I'm dying.
Oh, God, that's so nasty. Oh, it's making me puke.
Oh, the money shot.
You're right.
Yeah.
The upchuck that launched 1,000 ships. And when I watch this clip now, when you watch this back to back with I Bet You Will, it suddenly starts to make sense. One of the things that you start to see is the progression of how we went from that show to this movie, from a content perspective and a cost perspective. I had a plan of where our next efforts should be and what we should be focused on. Production is like a chain, and if you look at the links in that chain, each one of them should go seamlessly into the next one. They should all seamlessly go together. But what most people also don't know is that even while we were finishing this film, I already knew where we wanted to go next, what the next step would be, what the next link in the chain would be. We'd already planned what the next project we were going to take on and how we were going to make it. So while we were finishing Super Size Me, before the film ever got accepted to Sundance, we had a test screening. I got myself a clipboard because clipboards make you look 35% more official. I stood outside of the Angelica Film Center in New York City. There it is. And I said to people, would you like to come to the test screening of a new independent documentary film? And we got about 50 people to come to the screening. When the movie was over, myself and the two editors went down front. We asked them questions. What did people think? What did they think of the film? And one woman raised her arm and she said, I just want to thank you for making this movie and showing the world how terrible these corporations are and how they're manipulating us and lying to us. And a guy on the other side of the room raises his hand and yells back at her. He's like, what movie did you see? You're an idiot. He goes, that's not what this movie's about at all. You're crazy. And they start yelling and back and forth at one another. And I lean over to the two editors and I go, this is awesome. Because this crazy, raw, visceral reaction happened. These people that were yelling and screaming with each other. So the next day, we were in the edit, and I said, how can we take this idea? How can we take this thing that just happened, that's taken us a year to make, and do it on a more regular basis? How can we create a conversation week in and week out about really important social issues, about social topics? And so as soon as we sold Super Size Me at Sundance, I was on a plane the next day to Los Angeles to sell what would ultimately become 30 Days. Right on the heels of that, we knew from day one, I knew I needed to own my space. I knew that I needed to have the derivative rights, this idea of anything that would come out of this, be a part of our plan from day one. And years later, when we made the film, we reverse engineered this with the film Manson that we made a couple years ago with Will Arnett and Jason Bateman. When this film came out, we basically went to Yahoo. They came to us and said, we want to create a series about men, something that would be smart and funny. And I said, well, we just did this great movie with Will Arnett and Jason Bateman. And so we created Manson, the web series for Yahoo, that we'd ended up doing 250 episodes for them, and that went on to be seen by 50+ million people, 50+ million views on Yahoo alone. Now, the other thing that I did when Super Size Me came out, and I know this is going to sound pretty un-American, but the other thing that I did when Super Size Me came out was I didn't sue anyone who ripped me off. So when all these people basically ripped off this film, I didn't go after them with lawsuits. I didn't go after them with injunctions, because ultimately, some things are worth more than a lawsuit. For me, it was infinitely more valuable to get this info, this identity, this brand stamp as many places as possible. And it was important for me to let others help establish my creative position in the industry. And looking at the long game versus the short game, it's difficult. It can be hard to make that choice, especially if you're building something unique or cutting edge. Let's take Reed Hastings. Back when he created Netflix back in 1998, he said, in 5 years, everyone's going to be watching streaming entertainment on the web. And then in 2003, he said, in 5 years, everyone's going to be watching streaming content on the web. And then in 2008, he said, in 5 years, everyone's going to be watching streaming entertainment on the web. And in 2013, he was right. He was right. 15 years from when he started the company, Reed Hastings proved that the web was more than just a place to watch porn and cat videos. Interestingly enough, I didn't sue these guys either. I find this to be kind of a badge of honor. It's the 5th one. That's even more amazing. This is the 5th one. It's hard to stand by these things, but it can also lead to sea change. That's why, in this quest for global originality, you have to have persistence of vision. It's tough. It could take 15 years, but as Reed proved, it can also lead to a sea change. What Netflix, HBO, and others have done in the past few years is phenomenal. The bar for scripted television has elevated. It's raised on a global scale. And as it's gone up, it has also raised all of our expectations for what's possible. And the same is now going to happen for nonfiction and reality programming. Quality fiction TV brings a desire for quality nonfiction TV. When the $50 million Fox experiment show Utopia premiered in America, and it was a show that had done well internationally, less than 5 million people tuned in. And since then, the numbers have consistently fallen. Expectations have been raised. Audiences, like this guy, they want to be challenged. We want more. We expect more now, as is evident by the UK show Benefit Street. This is a show that on paper, you're like, nobody's going to watch this show. A show about the individuals who are basically living on the dole, people who are living on government benefits in the UK. When this show premiered in the UK, it averaged more than 6 million people watching every single week, almost a 20 share. It's unbelievable. And now, when you look at this, here's this fiction show that made a big cultural impact. There's a chance for more nonfiction shows to have just as much as an impact. You know, we doc filmmakers aren't just, crazy hippies and communists anymore. Like we are filmmakers that are now actually ready for prime time. More people today, and this is the most exciting thing to be happy about as a doc filmmaker, more people today are buying, distributing, airing, and watching nonfiction movies and TV shows than at any other point in history. And that's a huge opportunity for us. So what else is driving this change? For me, I think this is not just a question for the quest for global originality. The bigger one that I think we have to realize is that this is also a quest for global authenticity. Viewers, fans, consumers, target audiences now have the ability to not only give instant feedback on everything that you make, but they have the ability to influence everyone else instantaneously. And they smell bullshit faster than anyone. If it's not authentic, if it's not real, then you've already lost them. So what does that mean for you? Well, first and foremost, you have to know your brand identity, like this guy. Who am I? You have to understand and know that your core programming lives and breathes within the space of your identity. A few years ago, when I was making the movie The Greatest Movie Ever Sold, I had a psychological branding company break down my identity to its core public values, its core public viewpoint. And essentially, they said that I was mindful and playful, which is pretty true when you look at all the work that I've created in the past 10 years and what revolves around that. It all exists within that space. So in your global quest for authenticity, you have to be true to you. It's incredibly important. You have to be true to the mission of yourself and your company. And as you grow, you can extend that out into other that brand into other realms, other possibilities. But you should never go too far away from your core brand principles. So, how do we continue to be original? First and foremost, you have to take risks. You have to be willing to make the shows no one else will. When we made our Showtime series, 7 Deadly Sins, which, by the way, is available for all territories worldwide, just go see my good friends at CBS in booth R72. When we made this incredible series, I knew I wanted this show to pay homage to the shows that I'd loved as a kid. I wanted it to pay homage to Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I wanted it to pay homage to The Twilight Zone, Creep Show. Those programs are inherent in this show's DNA, but we made sure that it didn't look or feel like any other nonfiction program on television. We wanted it to look like a movie. It was shot like a movie. It was scored and paced like a narrative film. And we painstakingly changed our process to create a truly unique and impactful viewing experience. And best of all, the best part about this show, and what I think really is the testament to what it is that we were given free reign. We were given support by the network, but most of all, we were given free reign to be as creative as possible. And this is my next point, which in our quest for global originality, and this is for any programmers, commissioners, studio heads, network executives that are in the audience, let creative people be creative. Give them the freedom to do their jobs. The more you try to control that process, the more you try to put something in a box that shouldn't be, the worse the outcome will be. Just ask that guy. And the less authentic and the less original it will become. I've never been let down when I've let brilliant people be brilliant. It makes a big difference. And when you do that, not only will you create something special, you'll create something valuable. So what's the best way to build value? Well, today, now that you know your brand identity, the next thing for you to do is own that space in every space possible. You need to be delivering and developing on multiple verticals and opportunities simultaneously from the minute you have an idea. And for me, that means being platform agnostic. There are some great stories that are perfect for a 90-minute film. There are stories that are great for an hour of television, that should be serialized on televisions. There are other ones that are great for internet, digital content, or other places where they'll consume them, whether it be on a mobile or a tablet device, whatever type of short-form digital content. And for me, short-form digital content, this last one being more lucrative and more exciting than ever before today. So, here we are, 15 years since I started my first company. I've gone back to the future, coming full circle. I've gone back to the future with my good friend Doc there. And here I am, now starting a brand new digital company, a brand new partnership that we have where we're trying to reach people like this. Because for me, in terms of creating original content, there's no better place to be authentic than here, or here, or here. And there's no better place to take risks than here. And most importantly, there's no better place today to find valuable partners to support that risk than here. So in this new partnership we have with Maker Studios, we're creating Smartish, which is what I am. I'm smart-ish. We're creating content for a generation of people who for years have been told they're either too smart or too ugly for television. Luckily, there's a lot of us. And through this, we're going to be creating this, we're going to be filling this bridge. We're going to be bridging a gap between, both TED Talks and reality television. With the mantra, it's simple. If you can make someone laugh, you can make someone listen. Through humor, we can reach a tremendous amount of people. And through this bridge between TED and reality television, I think we're going to find a very specific niche. And you too can become a global partner by going to see my friends at Maker at Disney booth C14. The most important thing about originality that I just want to close with is that if you don't own your voice, someone else will. That's a big piece to this. So as you leave here and you go out on your quest for global originality, don't let someone else tell you what you should be making. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to you. It comes down to your mission, your brand values, your core values, and creating something that is going to take a risk and be different. Because being authentic and being original ultimately starts with you. Thank you very much, guys.